For once I feel like doing a nice little seasonal Christmas video, something I don't do very often. Now there's just one problem with that. This whole YouTube thing's been going on for a long time, hasn't it? And in that time I do believe that just about every officially released Christmas game has been done many times over. They're done. You've got folks like LGR, Octavius, Cadicarus and the good old AVGN who have a pretty nice knack for them, after all. So you know what, there's just not much meat left on the bones. We must explore other avenues. And you know what, I think I've found something interesting. Now even if Christmas is, in the words of the immortal Shakin' Stevens, time for presents, exchanging kisses and singing Christmas songs, it can also be a time of stress. Last minute gift buying, frantic searches for something on the telly, a mad dash for that one bloody ingredient you forgot. However, you know what might be more stressful even than all of that? Having a dangerous Christmas. That is, a Rick dangerous Christmas. Anywho, cue the usual intro complete with the necessary and ill-fitting seasonal additions, please. So, a Rick Dangerous Christmas. How's that a thing? Well, we'll obviously get to that, but a bit of background is needed first. A quick look into one of the most difficult, evil and fiendish series of European action platform games ever constructed. Rick Dangerous by Core Design. Created by legendary game dev bods Simon Phipps and Terry Lloyd, Rick Dangerous is an Indiana Jones style action hero on a mission to claim as much treasure as possible while thwarting Nazis and other assorted miscreants and avoiding plenty of traps, boulders, poison darts and many spikes. Quite simply, Phipps and Lloyd wanted to capture that first 5 minutes of Raiders of the Lost Ark feeling. Our hero is being very daring and flying by the seat of his pants while still keeping his hat on no matter what gets thrown at him. That is if you're very good and you've learned this game off by heart. Rick Dangerous 1 and 2 are very Marmite as games. Either you love or you hate them. Think of a platformer that may well have quite a few gotcha moments that you may not even figure out until they kill you. Something like, I don't know, I Wanna Be the Guy, or weird ultra hard games like that. In those games you do at least have unlimited lives. In Rick Dangerous, you do not. And this game is chock full of gotcha moments that you almost have no hope of anticipating. Enemies will actively chase you as opposed to following Manic Miner-esque predictable patterns, and every screen requires the absolute maximum attention. If you're good, you may get into some sort of very careful flow. You'll learn not to just go bombing up ladders, lest you trigger a poison arrow trap that you did not see. You'll learn not to get too close to walls, for yes, even they are your enemy, usually containing a spike trap you had no hope of seeing. You'll learn to be very careful when dropping down, being sure to pick a direction and hopefully avoid a spike trap that's almost certainly on the floor directly above the gap. And even with all that, you will still die a lot, and I do mean a hell of a lot. Is Rick Dangerous as frustrating as it appears? Oh yes, most definitely. Even if you take a few modern steps like playing it on an emulator and using save states, it will still utterly brutalise any new player. The design is just a whole new level of cruel, and it only gets nastier as you proceed slowly through the game's 4 levels. They're not even particularly long as levels go, if you were to master them, but length just comes from dying over and over again. And yet the games were quite successful and influential, even on more modern games. Spelunky, the brilliant roguelike modern platformer, borrows a lot of its aesthetic and a whole bunch of traps from Rick Dangerous. The quite underrated and also vicious 1001 Spikes is basically a direct homage. There are many others out there that have taken lessons from these games to create a nasty platformer, and I have to say that in my opinion, a lot of these newer games fare better than the original Rick Dangerous titles do. But the game does have very dedicated fans, of that there is no doubt. And in the early 2000s, a little French indie group called Spelunky Games wanted to create their own little tribute to the evil little platformer that they loved. What can I say? For some people, pain and pleasure just go hand in hand. And there's not one with that. These folks decided that they wanted to create a remake of the original Rick Dangerous for the Game Boy Advance in 2003. In these times, projects like this tended to garner a fair bit of attention, seeing as the idea of remaking an old computer game, of reviving retro, like this one, was still pretty new to a lot of people. News of this GBA Rick Dangerous update did spread and was reported on in magazines, especially because Spelunky's efforts actually did look quite sharp. The game would have featured not just an original graphics mode, but an enhanced mode with a much wider and brighter colour palette and plenty of nice new graphics. From the screenshots that are out there, it looks like a good effort indeed. But alas, it never came out. Why? Well, simple. Core Design, who were still going back then, decided that they didn't want to sell or release the rights to Rick Dangerous at all for internal reasons. In short, it amounted to a cease and desist, and so, unfortunately, the GBA remake was scrapped. Spelunky did hope that the reason why Core Design were so reticent was because they had a new Rick Dangerous game in the works, which of course they did not. They were far too busy getting ready to completely butcher their company with the disastrous shitshow that was Tomb Raider: The Angel of Darkness at the time. However, just a couple of weeks later, in March 2003, oddly enough, Spelunky did release a little something for fans of the Dangerous one, and that was Dangerous Christmas. This right here was a little thing constructed by the team using the level editor they'd made for the cancelled GBA Rick game, and they'd originally submitted it to a fangame competition on the website GBAX, where it came second out of 50 entries. While March may not necessarily be the most festive of times, unless you're Roy Wood I suppose, people were still happy to see a bit of dangerous action after the initial disappointment of the GBA remake getting canned. So let's have a play of this little thing right now, in 2020. Is it faithful to the philosophy and the difficulty of the original Rick Dangerous? In a word, yeah, most definitely. Spelunky's efforts most certainly has the trappings of a Rick Dangerous game. Poison arrows, this time in the guise of snowballs, spikes in the walls, Nazis who've nicked all the Christmas presents. Yep, you got plenty of all of that. It's only a short game, it basically amounts to a miniature level, but what is here is packed full of everything that makes Rick Dangerous what it is. It is perhaps a bit more bearable here because this is a bite-sized game. Learning it and beating it without endlessly resorting to save states didn't actually take me too much longer than half an hour. I think of this as something akin to a cover tape game like Moly Christmas or Dizzy 3½, a little original title that helps promote an IP. If Core Design had ever made an original Christmas-themed Rick Dangerous for an Amiga or Atari ST cover disc or something like that, I imagine it would have looked pretty close to this. It's definitely faithful to the series. The people who made this, they certainly do love Rick Dangerous. What's also interesting is that we do get a little feel for how the graphics for GBA Rick Dangerous would have been like in motion. And you know what, they're not too bad. Certainly some good artistry went into it. Unsurprisingly for the Game Boy Advance, the end result does feel a fair bit like a SNES game, which is often the case with a fair few commercially released GBA titles. I think that what's here is quite promising. It feels and looks a lot better than some games that did see a commercial release, like the GBA version of Manic Miner, for example. There appears to be a couple of endings too. You only get the true ending if you manage to get all of the presents. Now so far I haven't been able to do this, although I have to say that I'm not sure what presents I'm actually missing. There may well be a secret area or two that I haven't uncovered. On the whole, while I'm not any kind of fan of Rick Dangerous, I think this is perfectly okay. And in the world of Christmas games, that puts it high up there. Will it provide you with a stressful experience over the festive season? Well, of course it will. I mean, that is what Rick Dangerous is all about, after all. It is a shame that we can't actually play the mysterious GBA version that these guys were working on. I wondered if it might be somewhere on a dark and musky corner of the internet, but I've come up with nought so far. Some members of Spelunky appear to be active in game dev still, and they're still in love with the adventures of our indie-esque hero. One of them, Pascal Bouquet, made a thoroughly faithful port of the Atari ST version of the original for the Mega Drive a couple of years ago, which is what's currently playing on screen. Perhaps this video might dig up a bit more info about the whole project. Who knows. For now though, it's time for this festive video to come to an end. I can't promise that there will be one next year because frankly it depends on me having an urge to do one, but hopefully you appreciated this one. Bye for now! Thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully you are all doing very good indeed. If you like this video, please do like it, please do leave your comments, have a look at my social media, my Twitter, also have a look at my Patreon. You could join this list of very cool people indeed who are right here. Alexa Jones-Gonzalez, Andrew Dalton, Arcade LY Webmaster, Brian Henniger, Chris D. Xalior, Rimwan Sutter, Dagorath Dungeon Keeper, Danny Wolfers, David Matuszek, David Rose, Dinty76538, Douglas Miller, Dustin Cooper, Gary Samaden, Glunthef, J.S. Manchild, James Brown, Jace Alexander, Jeff Ladd, Johnny, Kid Cassette, Lukas Kuligowski, Mateus Gramzov, Mike Clayton Travis, Martin Pataki, Nate Milbank, Piotr Margel, Ren Bimon, Robert D. Felice, Rod B., Rusty Kelly, Sam Stoddart, Seth A. Robinson, Simon Gulliver, Stuart Christopher Brownlee, Tariq Amir, Tim Wald, Tom K., Yerka Operator, and to all the rest of the awesome community, thank you so much and goodbye.